The morning sun hadn't even risen. Fully when I heard the pounding on my door sharp, entitled impatient. Standing on my porch were 3 HOA compliance officers, clipboards in hand, neon vests glowing, acting like they owned the neighborhood. Without so much as a greeting, the man in front jabbed a finger toward my driveway. "That truck violates community standards," he barked. I followed his glare to my 1969 Ford F-100, a beautifully restored vintage truck I'd spent years rebuilding with my late father's tools. Before I could respond, another officer stepped forward with a tow company already backing in. "We're authorized to impound it immediately," he said. Smugness dripping from every syllable, I calmly asked to see their order. They refused. I asked what rule I had broken. They mumbled something about non-standard colors and visible mechanical modifications, neither of which existed in the HOA charter. When I reminded them that my dues were fully paid and my property was spotless, the lead officer smirked, leaning in with a whisper meant to intimidate me. "We don't need your permission." That's when I noticed his hand resting on my truck's hood, leaving a greasy print on the freshly polished paint. Something inside me snapped, not with anger, but with a cold, absolute clarity. I stepped back, reached into my wallet, and flipped out the one thing they never expected, my FBI badge. The color drained from their faces so fast it was almost comical. The tow truck driver put his hands up, like he'd walked into the wrong room. The lead HOA officer stuttered, We didn't know," but it was too late. I informed them calmly and professionally that impersonating law enforcement authority, attempting unlawful seizure of personal property, and trespassing on a federal agent's residence were all charges I could file within minutes. Their clipboards suddenly felt very heavy. I watched them scramble to gather their papers, muttering apologies as they backed away from the driveway. The tow truck peeled out so fast it nearly took a mailbox with it. By the time they reached the sidewalk, I was already dialing the real police, not out of revenge, but to make sure this never happened to my neighbors again. When the officers arrived and took statements, the HOA cops could barely speak. And as I stood beside my vintage truck, sunlight finally glinting off its perfect chrome, I realized something satisfying. They hadn't just picked the wrong fight, they picked the wrong guy.